on IT and telecommunication. I think many of you have been a part of its different discussions as well as different consultations we have had. We've also produced a number of, I think, knowledge products, and we'll also be launching one today. But just before going that, again, a really much needed debate, especially as Pakistan is nearing the largest ever spectrum auction in its history, and really looking forward to listening to the experts around it as well. But we'll go into the technicalities a bit later. So let me start with some of the housekeeping rules. The dialogue is being conducted in a hybrid manner. We have people joining us in person, as well as we have people as well as speakers joining us online as well. And the session is being live streamed on different social media platforms of SDPI, including LinkedIn, X, Facebook, as well as YouTube, thanks to the support from SDPI Sustainable Development Television. And the session is also being recorded, and the video will be posted online. And everyone feel free to share it within your networks. And for the speakers who are joining us online, I think particularly as of now, we'll be having Zainab Naeem joining us online. So we really request you to turn on your cameras while you're speaking. And as for the audience who's joining us online, you can either, if you have any questions or the comments, you can either place them in the Q&A or the chat box, and we'll directly pick it up from there. And I think we have a dedicated time slot for all the Q&As as we'll be looking into. So I think with this, again, in today's session, we actually have a scene setting presentation, but mainly it's a panel discussion where we have these structured questions, and that would be followed by the Q&A as well. But just to formally start the session, let me invite Honorable Brigadier Mohammad Yassin Saab for the welcome remarks. Brigadier Yassin is a distinguished advisor emeritus at Sustainable Development Policy Institute, and also leading the study group on IT and telecom as well. So, sir, thank you so much for joining us. Over to you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Respected Chair Dr. Mukarram, worthy panelists, distinguished participants, and development partners. On behalf of STPI, it's an honor for me to welcome you to this important session of the STPI study group on IT and telecom. And the subject under discussion is the 5G imperative in Pakistan, the need for comprehensive infrastructure, economic readiness, and digital sovereignty. As Pakistan moves towards what may become the largest ever spectrum auction in its history, involving nearly 600 megahertz of new spectrum, we stand at a decisive moment. This is not merely a technological upgrade. The transition from 4G to 5G represents a structural shift, one that will better define our digital economy, industrial competitiveness, governance systems, and even national resilience in the years to come. The promise of 5G comes with significant realities that must be confronted candidly. At present, Pakistan faces a major spectrum congestion challenge where over 130 million broadband subscribers compete for only 274 megahertz spectrum, far below the regional countries. At the same time, the deployment of 5G requires a strong foundation of fiber and backhaul infrastructure. While the National Fiberization Plan envisions fiberization of 80% of mobile towers by 2029, our current level remains under 18%. Also, our Connect Pakistan 2030 vision aspires to minimum speeds of 100 megabits per second and a truly digital society, indicating the scale of effort required. Equally critical is the question of economic readiness. TTA is preparing for the upcoming spectrum auction, which will include 2300 megahertz, 2600 megahertz, and 3500 megahertz frequency bands. The 2300 megahertz and 2600 megahertz bands are expected to play a critical role in enhancing quality, capacity, and user experience of existing 4G broadband services, enabling operators to deliver better performance and improved coverage. At the same time, the 3500 megahertz band is globally recognized as the primary spectrum dedicated for the rollout of 5G services, opening new opportunities of innovation, industry transformation, and digital competitiveness. Encouragingly, PTA has also indicated that nearly 80% of mobile devices currently in use in Pakistan are compatible with these frequency bands, which means that even before full-scale deployment of a large majority of consumers are likely to benefit from improved broadband experience through enhanced spectrum availability and network optimization. We must also recognize the heavy fiscal burden on mobile consumers and operators, including high taxation, rising operational costs, especially energy demands, as 5G base stations consume up to 5 times energy than earlier generations. These challenges are not isolated technical issues. These are questions of policy coherence, investment prioritization, regulatory reforms, and ultimately digital sovereignty. That is why today's dialogue is important so that we can collectively evaluate systemic hurdles in infrastructure and spectral readiness. Second, explore pathways to achieve fiberization and sustainable energy solutions. Third, recommend regulatory and fiscal reforms for affordability and sovereignty. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sure in today's discussion, we will be able to come up with appropriate planning and policy recommendations, which we will share with the relevant stakeholders. I thank all participants for joining this dialogue. I also thank SDPI's administration, MIS, media coordination, advocacy and policy outreach, IT and telecom team, and other staff involved in organizing this important event. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brigadier Saab, for setting the scene, the opportunities that that are developing, opportunities that we have regarding this development on the 5G rollout, but also for highlighting multiple challenges on different fronts, whether it's the economics, the energy, even environment side as well. So really, fully agreeing, sir, we need to kind of collectively evaluate the systemic hurdles. So with this, let me move towards the scene setting that we actually have. But before that, let me also kind of welcome all the subject experts that we have today. I think Brigadier Saab has already mentioned, but thank you so much to for all the panelists for joining us. Dr. Mohammad Mukarram Khan, he's the DG Cyber Vigilance at Pakistan Telecommunication Authority. Ms. Fatma Akhtar, she's the head of ESG, JAS Pakistan. Mr. Aslam Hayat, Senior Policy Fellow in Asia, and Parvez Iftikhar Saab, International ICT Consultant, and Hanan Tariq Saab, Director Strategy from Universal Service Fund. I think we'll also shortly be joined by Deputy Executive Director of SDPI, Dr. Sajid Amin, who will be coming towards the end. But I think Zainab, with the initial mentions by Brigadier Yassin, Zainab was actually supposed to join us in person, but I think there was really late call from the Ministry of Climate Change. She actually had to be there. But thank you, Zainab, for joining us online. And with this, I'll hand it over to you for a quick scene setting on the theme we actually are discussing today, and also especially the recent development on the spectrum auction as well. So Zainab, I hope you can hear us. So over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. I hope I am audible to all of you. Once again, apologies for not being there in person. As part of study IT group at STPI, especially under the leadership of Brigadier Yasin Saab, I think it's always a pleasure to host such dialogues and for setting the narrative around tech, around 5G, around telecom industry. So I think in that context, I really wanted to be there, but just there were some last minute calls that I had to go out of city. So just setting the tone, I think Brigadier Saab has very eloquently already set the tone. But just setting a few questions that we are looking forward to the panelists for answering those questions today, and also why, because we need to set up certain evidence and certain policy recommendations that we as stakeholders from civil society, from private sector side, and from other expertise that we have, we would like the government to integrate those recommendations. And at least now, when the government is taking 5G as one of the policy priorities, and in this context, the key question is that because 5G is being seen as an enabler of economic transformation globally, and it has to be strategically aligned with our national priorities. As Brigadier have mentioned, the economic vision that the government of Pakistan has, whether that's you call it Uran Pakistan or you call it any other name, even if it is connected with our climate, with our environment, with any policy that is linked with export competitiveness, with digitalization, I think 5G could be a very possible enabler of the entire transformation that Pakistan plans to achieve. However, technology alone does not create transformation, ecosystems do. And this includes the regulatory clarity, investment confidence, skilled human capital, and demand from real sectors of the economy. So the question that we must ask today is our economy ready to fully utilize 5G, or are we focusing only on the supply before demand? I think that is a kind of reality check. And another reality check, as Brigadier Saab mentioned, is around the infrastructure. It requires, of course, dense fiber backhaul, reliable and affordable energy supply, which is again another challenge that we are facing. And the spectrum management needs to be there. And then the upgraded towers, etc., the diversification within the networks. I think that's another big challenge that we already face, especially the telecom sector in Pakistan is facing high operational costs and taxation pressures. So if 5G rollout becomes financially unsustainable, it risks slowing digital progress rather than accelerating it. So that is a very key question. So the debate is not around anti 5G or pro 5G. It is about smart sequencing and sustainability. So I think for that, and the central issue is affordability also, not for the consumers only, but for the operators and businesses as well. So in that context, I think let today's discussion move beyond hype and towards practical pathways. And if designed well, 5G can support Pakistan's goal on digital economy, climate resilient technologies, innovation, global competitiveness and trade. Especially, the upcoming regulations are extremely strict in context of digital passports, in context of the traceability. I think in that perspective, the goal should be a balanced approach with a forward looking policy narrative and a strategic action plan that involves all stakeholders. Thank you, and I look forward to a rich and constructive dialogue today.
Thank you so much, Zainab, for setting the initial scene. I think with this, we're in a position to move towards the panel discussion. So very quickly, we'll be doing the panel discussion in two rounds. The second one focusing entirely on providing the way forward. But yes, I think a lot of important points raised by initial interventions from Brigadier Saab as well as Zainab. So to start off the discussion, and coming to Parvez Saab, thank you so much for being with us. So, I mean, from your perspective, you have been working on the sector for quite a long, and we actually had a lot of discussions within the same room too. So to start discussion, how do you see the subject of 5G rollout in Pakistan, considering the economic landscape? Also, Brigadier Saab touched upon it, Zainab touched upon it as well, and persisting challenges we have been seeing within the telecommunication sector. So how do you actually see the debate, and what are some of the very persisting challenges you think needs to be addressed as we kind of go towards this direction? So, thank you so much, sir. And if you could just, yes, turn on the mic. It's on.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you, Brigadier sir, for this event. SDPI has been doing this great job telecommunication sector. Well, I'm quite optimistic about 5G especially, and about the spectrum auction in particular, because firstly, it is going to remove that huge obstacle or huge barrier to the promotion or development of telecommunications in the country, which was the lack of spectrum. So the amount of spectrum which is being released now is twice the available spectrum in the country, which is a great deal. And I think this will go a long way in improving 4G, first of all, and above all, I think introducing 5G. 5G will only be introduced; it will not be something which is which will become ubiquitous in a very short while, but at least it will come in the country. I'm a little bit concerned about the reactions from those who have to actually implement 5G, and those are the mobile network operators. Maybe Fatma will correct me after when her turn comes, because we hear all kinds of arguments against sort of bringing in 5G, which sometimes feels strange. Because, for example, one of the arguments is that only 2% people own 5G sets, and so 5G will widen the digital divide. Well, that is true, but that is true for every new technology. Whenever a new technology comes, it is adopted by those who can afford it, or those who are, what we call them, geeks. So it is, and slowly it spreads. Of course, it's not immediately a big thing with everybody. Then another argument is between 2019 and 2025, half of the 152 million phones made in Pakistan were 2G and almost zero 5G. Well, handset production follows demand, obviously. And if there is no demand for 5G handsets, why would anybody make them? So hopefully when the 5G comes, there will be handsets. Then another point is usability gap. Roughly 1 in 4 mobile customers do not use mobile broadband. Well, that is true. 1 in 4 do not use, but 3 in 4 do. So it's looking at a glass half full or half empty. Then ARPU is too low in Pakistan. Yes, it is too low in Pakistan, but with increased use of data by the consumers, the consumption of data has actually contributed towards improving ARPU in Pakistan. So I have this from US dollar 0.87 in 2023 to US dollar 1.06 in 2025, and estimated to be 1.14 in 2026. Now, I've taken these figures from various reports, like, for example, VN, PTCL, Group Financial Statements, Industry Analysis by Analysis Mason, and PTA annual reports. And so with increasing data consumption, thanks to improved 4G, which is expected, ARPU will continue to improve. So this is when more consumers consume more data, the ARPU will improve. Yet another argument is operators being asked to erect 200 new towers per year. Well, this is not quite correct, because the concept of tower sharing is catching up, and tower outsourcing, in fact, not sharing, but outsourcing. And these towers will be erected by the tower cos, not by the MNOs, and they will be shared. So not every operator will be erecting 200 towers in Pakistan. One last very interesting remark that I read by a friend of mine, I will not take any names, in one of the interviews. It says, and I have quote, "Pakistan does not need to win a race to launch 5G. So I say, win a race against whom? Everybody has already crossed the finishing line. I mean, we are just talking of bringing in 5G, whereas in our neighborhood, we have 5G almost everywhere. Anyway, I'm still optimistic, because retail broadband has, which needs handsets, is not going to be the primary focus of 5G, in my opinion. Although even there, with premium speeds, you can charge premium tariffs, which will contribute to improvement in the ARPU, because those people who are, for example, who do gaming very serious, take gaming very seriously, and they do it over mobile. So for them, any price will be good enough. So, or those who can afford, if they have plenty of money. So the focus will be more on B2B in case of 5G. So 5G fixed wireless, for example, is another example where people will, where we can sort of bridge the gap which we have in case of fiber to the premises, fiber to the home in Pakistan. हमारा जो figure है fiber to the home in Pakistan, it's less than half the South Asian average. So, and we have to lay, of course, a lot of fiber, but this can be bridged at least in the interim period by having fiber to the home on 5G wireless access. So this will be a great contribution to the country. Then we have 5G campus networks. This is a terminology coming from Germany. They use this terminology for a limited area where you have like a campus. But even campuses, for example, if we have 5G network in Agricultural University Faisalabad, only covering the university, then look how much it can help in research and data collection from sensors and plants and things like that. Industry, of course, is a big application. Industry doesn't mean individual factories, but it means so industrial estates, for example, or special technology zones or special export zones. So there will be great use of 5G in such places. But different countries concentrated on different things. South Africa concentrated on mining industry. We have our textile mills. China and Korea and Thailand concentrated on smart manufacturing. Philippines focused on large shopping centers. So they said all the they use this network slicing option of 5G and for the retail apps. So even if there are hundreds of thousands of people using 5G, the retail apps will keep working optimum. So some might say there's not enough industry coming up in Pakistan. Well, that is true, but at the same time, we see these several Chinese auto manufacturers, setting up their plants and things like that. So B2B customers are going to be the primary focus. They don't ask for unlimited data. What they demand is better latency, more profitability, which makes more profitability, and they often share investment with you, and they do not churn. The B2B customer, it doesn't go away anywhere. So I think I've said enough.
Yes.
So this is what my thoughts are.
Thank you so much, Parveza. Just before coming to Aslam Saab on the demand side, just if you could very briefly comment that you talked about some of the South Asian economies. Did we kind of also foresee some of the similar challenges coming on the rollout of 5G over there as well?
Well, yes, we have similar challenges. India, for example, had similar challenges. They also had this fiber deficit in the beginning, but they launched this other scheme called it's called Gati Shakti program in October 2021. It's a major infrastructure master plan, which tries to improve the coordination and accelerate the infrastructure development, because it uses a digital platform based on geographical information system, GIS, and all the ministries and departments have a visibility of the existing infrastructure, of the planned projects, utilities, things like that. So that helps. That helped a lot. Of course, ROW was facilitated, and which our government has also done, must be acknowledged, has done or is doing to facilitate ROW. Then in September 21, they looked at the industry and they said that the industry is in financial stress. So they came up with these 20-year payment moratoriums, which triggered the fastest 5G rollout anywhere. This was just in our neighborhood. Not only the MNOs were allowed to pay for spectrum in 20 years. By the way, we have 5 years. In contrast, they were given a one-time option to convert their interest on the outstanding payments into equity for the government. Now imagine the government has equity and government becomes a partner in your business. So a lot of obstacles can be overcome if the one who has to overcome the obstacle is your partner. So then, of course, another problem they had was smartphone availability, the same problem that we talk about. So they launched a so-called Production Linked Initiative, PLI scheme. Now, in the PLI scheme, the mobile production, they gave some subsidies, they promised some subsidies based on the number of sets that they were able to sell. And the mobile production has surged 146% since 2021 in India. So they flooded the market with cheap 5G phones, so enabling mass adoption. So this is just in our neighborhood, and I'm sure we can copy some of these.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Parvesa. So thank you so much, Parvesa, for highlighting opportunities and also seeing this whole development as a really from an optimistic point of view. Coming towards the need for creating the demand for 5G, particularly, again, very pleased to have with us Aslam Hayat Saab. So Aslam Saab, sir, coming to you, and if I can kind of request the MIS team, Aslam Saab will be using some visual aids and a brief slide deck for his intervention. So sir, slides are displayed. Over to you, Mer. If you can please pass on the slider. Is it here? Okay.
Thank you, Brigadier Sir, for this opportunity. And I'm always grateful and very happy that for the last 25 years, there have been a lot of policy suggestions which has improved the overall environment in the telecom and IT sector. So my focus today is basically on the demand side, because what we have been doing since 2003, focusing on providing infrastructure on telecommunication. If you look at all these policies, it was 2003, deregulation, 2004, mobile sector. Then we had in 2015, it was all focused on providing infrastructure, spectrum, fiber, all these things. There has not been any effort on addressing the demand side in the telecommunication. What we are going to do with this infrastructure, how we are going to use. The last policy we had was in the year 2000, which was an IT policy and action plan. Almost 70% of it was never implemented. And after that, there is no focus. Even if you look at the policy directive, which has been issued by the Ministry of IT in January this year, which has triggered this spectrum auction and 5G. It has just 4 components. One says that this is the spectrum we are going to auction. Then the what the base price would be, what the payment terms are, and everything else will be done by PTA, which I think is heavy burden on putting on PTA, which is a telecom regulator, not an demand side addressing agency. So what is lacking is the overall demand which needs to be created. So these are the few topics I've picked up. I will not go through each and everything in more detail. You have the slide deck, and I have also provided a policy memo which can help you in drafting those proposals. So what I see is that there are no clear national use case policy priorities. And that is going to cause a problem for the operators or anybody who want to invest on the infrastructure. So you cannot and will not invest heavily on something where you do not see the outcome or the return on investment. So these are the areas where 5G can play a very heavy role, as Professor also mentioned, is the manufacturing, is the logistics, you have got on the health side, energy, agriculture, and then of course on the government side, for public safety and disaster response is also one of the use cases. And then there is bits and pieces going on the smart city projects, but there is no coherence. If you just have to have some sort of coherence over it, this would also be a good use case. So my suggestion is that when the government needs to come up with a demand side policy, they should, or the government itself should come up with the projects which will guarantee usage of the 5G technologies. And these are some of the areas where you have those smart projects, the education part, the modernization of the Udan Pakistan, which they're talking about. And then, of course, the health part. So if government starts saying that I'm going to do all these things, then would be enough justification for the operators to invest into the 5G technology. So on the industry side, again, industries might catch up in few years. But if you start giving them in a policy framework some sort of incentives, there will be a much faster adoption of 5G. You have got those grants for the pilots, proof of concepts, if possible, the tax incentives, especially on the IoT devices. And then, of course, those productive tools are there, these digital transformation funds, which could be there. There is already an R&D fund. There is also an Ignite project, but this is something which they can also integrate into it. And by doing all this, they would be moving from the demo of 5G to actually a 5G production area. So on the industry side, again, there is a possibility, but again, you need to give them some sort of incentive and some sort of regulatory support. For example, the neutral host model in the large facilities needs to be there, or the leasing of spectrum or local licensing or shared spectrum. Those things also needs to be having some sort of regulatory support. Without that, obviously, the private network framework would not work. So local content is also equally important. As I said before, since the year 2000, we have not come up with any policy which actually address those content application on or any innovation system. The last innovation policy was, you can call it an R&D policy, which for the first few years was just on research, and now they have started moving into the startup ecosystem, which is still not producing enough results. So my whole point is that if you do not do all these things, there is the policy development, you have got collaboration with the university or industry. If you don't do it, then the 5G would only be just the faster 4G, which is obviously should not be the intention. Device affordability is a very important component. As the professor mentioned, it's 2% today, or less than 2%. But we should not just assume that the people will go and buy those expensive handsets where they have to not just pay those excise duty, but also a PTA tax, which obviously has nothing to do with PTA itself. But obviously, PTA is taking all the blame for that. So you should not expect. So you need to have some sort of intervention, either reduce the taxes. There needs to be a financing for those devices, which they can afford. And then, of course, if possible, please shut down this 2G manufacturing of handset anymore and focus on higher generation handsets. And then, of course, there needs to be bundled plans, giving them incentive. And then, of course, towards the bottom end of the pyramid, you need to have some sort of targeted support. So there are multiple frameworks which are needed as part of this demand side policy. There are things going on, I must admit, in bits and pieces, but it's not a very comprehensive framework. There is a cloud first policy. Data protection laws are there. The first draft came in 2005 and the last one is 2023, and it's still not passed. Cybersecurity, there has been a great initiative by PTA and in the industry. There has been a lot of activities recently also. This also needs to integrate it. And then, of course, cross-border data flow. There needs to be clarity. I'm sure this clarity would come with the data protection legislation. Same goes with the digital identity and authentication. So all these needs, you cannot have a faster 4G or 5G unless there is a trust element into the whole ecosystem so that the people can use it comfortably. And then, of course, you need to create skills. You need to make sure that the industry is ready, the people are ready. And for that, you need to have those people trained on engineering and radio frequency skills on 5G. There needs to be AI usage. There's an AI week was going on, but IoT designs needs to be there. Of course, the government which needs to procure all those services, there needs to be a procurement staff training also. And of course, cybersecurity is something which we cannot miss at all. And then I think the regulatory support which needs to be there is, as Professor also mentioned about the network slicing, you cannot do it unless you have a regulatory support, because the current framework says that you cannot discriminate between the different users. You have to provide service of the same quality to everyone, irrespective of the pricing. So I think that needs to be addressed, the quality of service. A name and shame is not enough, which PTA is doing on quarterly basis of the operators. There needs to be some sort of enforceability so that they can improve their service. And then, of course, MVNO and frameworks, which has been recently also approved. There needs to be regulation on the neutral host, and then, of course, permission for the infrastructure sharing. Not the passive sharing, which is happening already, but the active sharing, which is yet to happen. And then I think there are a few KPIs which needs to be there as part of the policy. Otherwise, as I said, that even in the previous policies, majority of the things have yet to be materialized. So as part of this policy of demand side, there needs to be not just the population coverage. Please do not say that X percentage of the people have been covered by 5G, whether they can afford it or not, whether they can use it or not. It should be, the KPI should be that how many private 5G networks are there, how many industries are using it, what 5G enterprise, which is the best case solution, use case, those contracts are signed, how many use cases are in production, whether through funding or otherwise. And then, of course, what is the productivity, which is coming to priority sectors. Device penetration, of course, is also going to be a metric. And then, of course, the startup ecosystem growth. So all this should be the KPIs and not just the penetration, not just that 1,000 sites every year. That does not solve any problem or does not address what we intend to achieve. That's pretty much I have to say.
Perfect. So much thought for many different interventions on the demand side. What we need to create the industry, but again, really good perspective coming. I think with this coming to Fatma again. Sorry, with this coming to Ms. Fatma, how's the, again, I think both of them have kind of pointed out to a lot of how the private sector is actually seeing it, and I think our question would also be in the same front. How is the private sector really just seeing this development, seeing the rollout of 5G as an opportunity? And also any recent developments or initiatives that you would like to highlight from your end? So, yes.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, STPI. I think this is very useful. I am particularly pleased because I feel the conversation which is now happening around the auction is very mature. It's very balanced. We're talking about the prerequisites in a very pragmatic way. This is a win actually for all of us. It shows that our discourse around this auction is actually it's something worth appreciating. So I just want to commend all that. As far as this 5G auction is concerned, I would prefer to call this a spectrum auction. I think it has covered in earlier that we were a spectrum-starved country. This is, I think, in a decade, we've not had the kind of release of spectrum that we've needed. And now we are going for, inshallah, an auction where we will see twice as much spectrum available. This in itself is also a win that this spectrum is being made available. There was conversation around sovereignty when I just joined in the panel, and spectrum essentially is a very sovereign asset. You know, it's your own network, which is available indigenous to you. How you leverage it for economic value is something which we are discussing right now, but we must recognize that spectrum is a sovereign asset. When we talk about this upcoming auction, I think Pakistan is very interesting. There's a bit of a digital paradox also. Whilst we talk about connectivity, most of the countries connected, I think kudos to the entire ecosystem that has contributed to it. But Parvez talked about this usage gap, right? So whilst connectivity is there, how is that connectivity being leveraged? I think that's really the question we need to ponder on more. I mean, we've talked about how technology is only as good as its use, but will this spectrum auction help you overcome that usage gap? Devices is a big part of it. I feel it's a bit of a chicken and egg problem that you do the auction and then cheap sort of rollout of cost-effective devices we'll see in the market. Inshallah, I think this will happen for Pakistan also, because at the moment, device penetration of 5G is pretty low. It's around 2%. But the reason I think we need to focus on is the use cases, right? That if in different countries, how is 5G being used? Is it enterprise-related use cases? In the case of India, where they achieved mass scale, a lot of it was because of the policies done by the government to ensure that low-cost handsets are available to the populations, right? So different countries have really approached this technology differently. And I think for us also, this is a big moment for the entire industry. We would like to see, obviously, the handset aspect to be improved. And inshallah, like I said, we'll see the play come into sort of motion a lot post this auction. But ultimately, I think we need to really sort of come back to the basics, which is, to me, this usage gap is something which needs to be. It's not just skills that we need to build on, but, how can we really leverage good quality sort of internet experiences to improve our citizens' productivity? I think this is what we really need to focus on at a country level if we have to really achieve the results or the economic value of this auction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fatma. And I think just one perhaps a quick follow-up question from my end. Based on some of the points that I think even Brigadier Saab raised, Parvez Saab as well as Aslam Saab raised, were regarding the inclusivity point. So from a social impact perspective, how can we kind of ensure that the deployment of these advanced connectivity promotes also true social inclusion and benefits the underserved communities as well, rather than just catering to high-end urban users as well?
So I think one piece of it is obviously the service provider, where the operator comes in. And Hanan said from USF, there's a lot of work where operators are working with USF to ensure connectivity is provided to the rural areas. But I think earlier it was covered about skills. I think that's essentially, we need to over-index that a lot more. The government recently did the AI Indus Week, and there was a lot of talk around how do we need to train our youth, which is, 60% of our country is sort of, under the age of 35. Now, is it sort of a burden on you, or is this your dividend? I think so. Internet connectivity, digital technologies, in many ways, we've argued about this in the past also, they're an equalizer, right? So we will be compute deficit if you talk about the AI revolution, but what we do have is human capability. Leveraging human capability, upskilling human capability, and to kind of turn this asset into a capability is really something we need to do. Again, I think an ecosystem lens has to be kind of operated, because connectivity alone is not, we need to really go deeper and understand this from a socio-economic lens. And I think tying this to an economic productivity, how can we improve people's livelihoods? I think when economic value is tapped into, that's where we see the benefit of digital technologies much more, and they become much more pervasive. And especially in the case of women, I would like to add that we really need to work on how we can make women more inclusive. People talk about that, but really, I mean, we have home-based workers. Can we ensure that they have the right skill sets to turn their craft into skill which is marketable and they can monetize? So I think monetizing skill sets educating them around it. I think it's a big task, but this is probably the one way forward that, we can do. Rest, I think the youth bit needs to be tapped into more. Universities, actually about 3 years ago, we actually set up a 5G innovation lab at NUST, and our purpose was to really help students understand and study enterprise level use cases. It's a SA sort of deployment, very state of the art. And research has done, but I feel that's also an element which is seriously lacking in our country, the sort of R&D capability that, our academic institutes do. I think we need to really, really build on that. And if we had built on it today, our conversation would also be very different, right? We wouldn't be questioning that does 5G have a use case or not have a use case. We would really be talking about, so what can we do to make this 5G auction a success? So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fatma, for highlighting this. And I think for the how part of this, will definitely come to the colleagues Hanansa from USF. So Hanansa, building on the discussion, how do you see 5G to also integrate advanced e-services such as digital health, I think was also raised, e-agriculture, fintech into projects to ensure that the rural connectivity leads to immediate socioeconomic empowerment as well. And also, if I kind of connect it with the digital nation Pakistan goals, what model of cooperation do you recommend to provide 5G enabled digital skills needed for youth in remote provinces to access and compete in international markets as well? So over to you, Anand.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you so much for having me. Before I go into the details of the e-services, let me just explain in a brief way that how 5G will be different from the 4G part in terms of e-services, because there are many e-services which are already being on. So just for the sake of understanding for the audience, there are three major applications of 5G for which it is distinguished from the 4G. One which we call mobile broadband, like with EMBB, we call it a technical way, which actually enhances the capacity of the mobiles or mobile devices to be connected. Plus it supports the HD streamings, AR, VR, these kind of things. Second thing, which is 5G famous for, is the low latency applications, reliable low latency applications. They are mission critical applications, for instance, robotics, remote surgeries, like these ones, where we need a very low latency, a quick distance. And third is the massive machine terminal connection, like billions of machines are connected at the same time. So most of the time it's kind of a smart city or smart agriculture part. So moving onwards, now we are having a spectrum auction, which will enhance the 4G. At this stage, I think the only thing which we can leverage is the first part, which is EMBB, enhanced mobile broadband devices. Why is this so? Because the operators, when they have to take over the 5G, they go step by step. First, there are two models. First, they will anchor the 4G network, use the services, and later on, they will go to the complete 5G services, right? At this stage, in fact, it's a global practice that most of the operators, they go in the first model first, which we call NSA, non-standalone, in which means that the 5G services have to be taken from the 4G network infrastructure. So this is one thing. Now, this means that to moving on to the applications part, first we need to ensure that at least 4G infrastructure is there, broadband is there. Going to the other applications of 5G, it may take some time because it needs some investment from the operators, for which they may be reluctant in that part. Now, coming to the point which Fatma also mentioned, that what we can do at this stage, we have a 4G network already in our country. So what we can do is we can use that infrastructure. I mean, we can make a leverage infrastructure that can be enhanced or used for the e-services in the remote part. As a USF, what we're doing is our mandate is actually the rural communities, unserved and underserved areas, and we just support the industry to go to those areas where the marginalized community is there and invest through our subsidies and provide the fiber connections or the mobile connections over there. So what can be done is that using those networks industry, they can further enhance it and encourage the local people or the private companies to provide the e-services through our networks. We have also done this in Gokina village with Sehat Kahani, where we had the network and Sehat Kahani was engaged for the e-services part. Recently, I just give you one example that recently in Muzaffargarh district, we have laid down a fiber of around 699 kilometers. At that stage, there was not a single home or place which was connected to the fiber. But our service provider, they took advantage of that network and they extended it to further 800 kilometers and have connected it to 12,000 homes FTTH, which is a big success. So this means that they can use the network and provide the access to the people so that they can avail the services of e-health or e-education, because there are some companies that are already providing these services, e-health and e-education. So this is one of the thing. Second thing which can be done, as sir also mentioned, that we can also opt for, or the operators can also go for the FWA model, fixed wireless access. This is a very famous model and it's practiced globally, especially in India as well. In India, there are 400 million 5G subscribers, and I think 9.5 million they are using the FWA network. So this is a huge number. In that model, user do not have to suffer or bear the cost of the mobile handsets. Only the network, they just deploy and put the devices in there at their premises. So they can also be opted to enhance the access to the e-services or e-health services. Now, coming to the second part of your question, that what kind of training programs can be opted. Now, keeping the future in mind and keeping the nature of the technology evolving and the services which we are anticipating in future, the digital programs should move further from the basic skills training. I mean, we are still just training the basic things to the community, to the people. We have to enhance the training programs to the topics which are the mandatory now to have you to stay, I mean, in the race or for your survival. For example, we're talking about the AI or machine learning things. We're talking about the AR and VR things. We're talking about cloud computing, the edge computing, the data analysis. Then we have the digital skills which can help the rural people community to use that to further earn through freelancing, for example. So in this case, I think there are options that maybe the government sector, they can also play a role. We have Ignite, we have National Incubation Centers as well. We have PSEP as well. So they can further enhance their projects to the tier 2 or tier 3 cities, so that the communities over there, they can also facilitate it through these programs. So yeah, I think this is 2 cents from my side.
Thank you so much, Anand sir, been very well screened out. Thank you so much for these interventions. And with this, I think I'll be moving towards the second round, which would be again more towards what exactly are some of the recommendations that we're exactly presenting from this platform. So I think coming back to Parvez sir, sir, again, you have been listening to the discussions earlier, if you have any reflection on those. But I think on one of the point around the economics of the case, I mean, in your perspective, in your suggestion, what kind of reforms, taxation reforms, financial incentives do you think have been successful in helping emerging markets expand their networks? And more importantly, what immediate fiscal correction should Pakistan prioritize to enable this more smoothly? Yeah. So if you could just turn on the mic.
The most successful or the biggest reform is the fiscal reform or the taxation reform. And as you know, in Pakistan, we are quite heavily taxed as far as telecommunications is concerned. The cheapest smartphone, which is produced locally, attracts an 18% sales tax on it. So that increases, of course, the price, and it's an affordability barrier because of which people cannot enter the world of internet, or mobile internet at least, which is the most common, most popular way of accessing internet, mobile. So smartphone cost is a big barrier. And the next barrier is the usage. I mean, this is something which I have been, which I say every time, the tax on usage of internet is unexplainable, at least to me. there is 15% advance tax plus 19.5% GST on the provinces and FED, it's called FED in Islamabad. So a total of 34.5% tax, which is not only the highest of any sectors in the country, but also the highest in among our peer countries. So that is one fiscal reform which is extremely badly needed. And the countries have done this and shown what improvement it brings. I looked at many countries, and Thailand and Vietnam stand out very prominently. What they did was they sort of they dropped the taxes on the handsets to allow the maximum number of people, to own handsets and the smartphones and create value with them. So and instead they tried to tax. They shifted the taxes to the new businesses which these created: e-commerce, fintech, logistics, whatever. So that is something which is again being practiced in the neighborhood in countries which are like us, not in some remote developed country. So these are some of the reforms which I have already explained are other than the fiscal. For example, incentives to produce smartphones, like in India, the PLI scheme, and the other scheme which rewards usage of 5G or similar technologies, and of course these are the things which are extremely necessary from the supply point also. As Asam mentioned and others mentioned also, it is not enough to supply something and then expect miracles in the economy. You have to create incentives on the supply side also. So in Pakistan, the government is I think we're not doing nothing. As I said, provinces charge 19.5% GST, which is again the highest of any sectors. But do they spend on anything on supply side? Do they, for example, provide fiber optic based broadband connection to healthcare centers or the government schools, colleges, for example? No, they don't. So that would be the supply side. If the government decides, the provincial government decides to provide broadband to every college, for example, the investors will obviously find anchor customers and they will come running, which will improve the other fiber to the home, fiber to the premises, fiber to the tower, everything. So talking of incentives, well, tax incentives, other incentives to improve production of smartphones, usage and promote usage of smartphones, all these are there. And of course, last but not least, is the government becoming a user itself. Now, why would in Pakistan, in Islamabad, for example, there are about 500 to 600 safe city cameras. And I was reading a report in the newspaper that it is planned to have 3,000 more safe city cameras. Now, today, all these cameras are connected with individual optic fiber cables. Why? I mean, 5G can do that job extremely well. Even 4G could actually, but 5G even better. So then, of course, metro bus services and emergency services and things like that. All that government, if government becomes a user of technology, it can help the country, help the economy, help the demand side, and help the growth.
Thank you so much, Parvez Saab. Just before coming to Aslam Saab, I think this question would be kind of falling upon you. Let me come to Ms. Fatma. Ms. Fatma, what do you identify as the key enablers or policy regulatory developments that would allow the private sector to accelerate the uptake of 5G and avoid any threats to long-term public and institutional trust? And any other recommendation from your perspective would like to kind of pitch to this platform?
Sure, thank you. I think I would echo what Parvez mentioned in terms of recommendations. I think one thing, as I even mentioned earlier, that we need to move from our metrics of evaluating success, need to move from sort of hard metrics like coverage, etc., to really more socioeconomic metrics that, how is access really translating into economic opportunity, particularly for women. I think that's an important part of it. I would also echo that in a emerging, developing context like ours, it's not really, we talked enough about how technology will not determine much, it's the use of it. So I think recently the World Bank president also talked about job creations. I think we need to really link these two together, that we need to ensure that will we be able to create enough jobs for our youth? I don't know if that is realistic, but what we can do is we can create opportunity, and ultimately this is the biggest use case of adopting digital technologies, whether it's AI, whether it's incremental sort of improvements like 5G to your infrastructure. We need to ensure that this creates opportunities for sort of our youth. And I think as a hard policy thing, one thing I would really talk about is device affordability. And I would really talk about handset sort of installment financing schemes, which is how it's done anywhere else in the world. I mean, we've all seen operators also. I mean, there are financing models where over a period of 24 months or more, you actually sort of pay for your handset. So I think we need to really sort of bring that into a context like ours, because it's not a realistic expectation that people can sort of pay for a handset sort of upfront. So yeah, these are some of the things that I would.
Thank you so much, Fatma. Samsab sir, coming to you, if you have any recommendations, but particularly perhaps 2 pointers from our side, that from a policy perspective, what mechanisms would you also recommend resolving the spectral congestion and ensure that upcoming auction also kind of effectively incentivizes the operators to invest despite some of the economic downturns that have been discussed? And so secondly, I think this was also one of the points that you also mentioned in your slide deck, that as we move towards a more connected economy, how can the state balance the need for digital sovereignty and at the same time protect and local data protection as well? So.
Since I'm a policy guy, so I would always look at either the need for a policy or a loophole in a policy. So for me, I think the spectrum policy of the government has been flawed throughout, and that caused a lot of problems on the affordability also, and investment from the telecom sector operators. If you look at the pattern, 2004 was the only auction which was conducted in a way where the market or the operator decided what is the optimal price for the spectrum. That was because there was no base price. Before that, if you go to 91 and 92 or 93, and then UPON's 98, there was basically no it was a throwaway price and spectrum was given. So after 2004, the other auctions in 2014, the base price was so high that the operators who were desperate to get more spectrum, they just bought it on the base price. 2016, one single operator buying spectrum, no competition, because the base price was high. 2017, the base price was high, and one operator ended up buying the spectrum at the base price. So throughout, you see the pattern. The pattern was to maximize the revenue from the spectrum and take it away from the telecom sector. So this was the money which could have been invested on the infrastructure, could have been invested on providing affordable services to the people, could have been invested to subsidize the handsets. So that all went out, probably spent on state-owned enterprise or somewhere IPVCS. So that would have been much better if this money would have come back to the sector. I mean, PIA auction is a very good example. Government should think about it as a model now. If the spectrum was on the rollout or affordability, and then committing that this money would go back to the investment into the infrastructure, that would have been much more better outcome. Now, coming back to this, the 2021 auction was failed because of the base price. Nobody actually thought that it's a good idea to invest so much money. And now the spectrum price, which has been reduced significantly, is because of this 2021 auction. If it was also, the spectrum was sold on the base price, you probably would not have seen this. And the other negative part of this base price was that the renewal which came in the year 2019 or 2020, where 3 operators were supposed to renew their spectrum, actually 4 Warid also, they could not afford to, and there was a heavy litigation on it. They said the base price is too high for the renewal, and you ended up from 6 operators in 2004 to 3 operators in 2026, solely for the reason that at least 2 operators could not afford to pay the renewal fee at this base price. And the third operator decided that exit the market is not sustainable. The pricing is not sustainable. So for me, the government needs to fix this spectrum policy. They need to ensure that the investment should go into the infrastructure and not into the state-owned enterprise or IPV or whatever it is. So I think that is one intervention which can make the sector healthy and the services affordable, and the people who would be able to use this more efficiently.
Allow me to add
Sure,
something here in this context. The money coming back to the sector. The original USF legislation says that the proceeds of a spectrum auction will come to the USF. No, but it never happened, and I don't know whether that legislation is changed or not. But that money, spectrum auction money, never came back to the sector.
Actually, that 2006 amendment, I drafted that, and then that was heavily criticized, and this has been amended now.
Yes.
So the spectrum money is not, it would never came, but even the obligation and this section was also removed.
Thank you so much. Coming again to Hanan Saab, if you have any recommendations you'd like to pitch from this platform, please.
On this. First thing, as sir has already mentioned, the spectrum part, I totally second him. This is the major thing which we need to get fixed. And also on top of that, I think, sir, from the operator side, it's also very important that the operators should be able to buy a good bulk of frequency. This is also very important in terms of delivery of the services. For instance, the block of 10 megahertz and block of 20 megahertz, it makes a difference. If the price is optimal, then operators might go for the bigger block. And for 5G, it's highly recommended that you get a bigger block in order to get services as per their requirement. Secondly, fiber, we have already a good progress that ROW fares are now waiver off, but I think the processes maybe they can also be streamlined. Then there is third thing, which is the energy solutions. As we have mentioned that 5G is will be consuming more energy. Either it's a handset or it's a site over there. So we need to devise a strategy for the industry that to maybe to give them incentives or to leverage some special kind of policies for them, for that they can make energy efficient sites for their deployment. Then as Ms. Fatma also mentioned, the handset part, currently I think 40% of handset which are being assembled in Pakistan, they're still 2G, right? We need to first shut down this 2G handsets only and move it to 2G, 3G, 4G, at least all of the technologies they should be supporting. This is the first thing, so that people are enforced to buy those handsets, but not on the higher prices, obviously on the affordable prices. Now, how to get the affordability? One thing, sir, has already mentioned the taxation part, which should be, I mean, removed. I think there is, I just read one, the way 33% of total inclusive taxes, advance tax and sales tax was there. So it's a very difficult for the operators as well. Plus, they can also be one of the options to provide subsidies on the services part, especially to those people. Just like we have BISP programs, Business Income Score programs, we have a database of people who are who cannot afford such kind of things. Maybe we can just derive a way of reaching them out with some subsidized rates. Then the skills. Recently, in one of the village in district Muzaffargarh, Jugiwala, last week, USF has in collaboration with, you can say, ISOC and GTIP, we have established one lab in a government school of girls. and we have started giving them the trainings. But we were very surprised to see that the school girls over there, they were not even aware of about what is a keyboard or what is a mouse over there. And we were just shocked that we were planning to give them a digital skills training part. So it's kind of very opposite things. So we asked them to change the curriculum and just go to the basics now. So this is one of the things. If we want to engage the rural communities, we need to, I mean, equip them with these kind of skills. And especially the government schools, it should be enhanced or prioritized. And yes, the success KPIs, again, I second all of them. It should not be the coverage. It should be the output of providing that coverage. How many people have got jobs, for example, how many people have contributed in the economy of the country. So these are some of the things which I would recommend as a policy part. And the last, I think we should all come with the consortium. I mean, public-private partnerships. This is must. In India, the BharatNet project, phase 3, it was successful, very successful project. It all came because of the public-private partnerships. Government can only leverage to some extent. I mean, they cannot go beyond that. So there comes a private company's role that to take over from that part and move ahead. Similarly, the government ministry organizations like USF, Ignite, PSAB, they can also work together to make sure that the services go to the marginalized communities as well. So these are a couple of cents from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hanan Sab and everyone for such wonderful interventions. But let me take this opportunity to come to our panel chair. Thank you so much, Dr. Mukarram, for joining us. And firstly, thank you for the efforts and best of luck to PTA for the upcoming auction. So the idea for the debate today was also to kind of present you the suggestions from this group to you highlighting the potential challenges there are, opportunities, and the contours of change that we see would be really important for an efficient rollout of 5G. Obviously, we're also all really excited, but with this, let me request you for your reflections and interventions you'd like to pitch this from this.
Thank you very much, first of all, for honoring me and giving this opportunity to speak and listen to this discussion. I always feel very small because so much learned people are here. And as I said, I always feel there is a viva going on. I have to speak in front of you. But anyway, let me share my thought. So basically, PTA has to look after the interest of three communities. One is the government of Pakistan, other is the CMOs, and third is the citizen of Pakistan. There are always a hue and cry before anything is launched because everybody tried to catch up the commercial, or the chunk of its interest into the kitty. So same way, CMOs, not that they are not willing or they don't know the benefits of 5G, but they are just creating a hue and cry so that they can get as much concession and leverages as possible out of this. I know Mudassar Saab, he was a member technical, and had he been on that side, he would have been very strict. But now because he's on this side, so that's why he say, why there's a race, so we should not be, following it blindly. But, it is always like that. And, but if we look after the interest of CMOs, then the situation can be like the contract we had with IPPs. And the sufferer are government and people of Pakistan. Because they at that time, making finding the opportunities of the calamities at that time, because we were shortage of energy and energy crisis in the country. So they came seemingly as a rescuer, and they convinced the government on their terms. And then even today, after 30 years, we are suffering. So we really care for you, but if we really follow your advices, then, the sufferer would be the other two communities, the government of Pakistan, because then one day the sitting prime minister would be under NAB after 3 years. And the same thing has happened before this. And, there's a discussion in PTA. It's not that PTA is not cognizant about it. We have been discussing very openly on this. And we have been thinking of allocation instead of the auction that we should give away, and we should, indirectly, we should ask them to invest on the infrastructure and improve the services of this. But we are also a regulatory body and we are under laws and something like this. And even now, when we have reduced it to 1 million base price as compared to the 19 million in Bangladesh, people said it's a pakka jo NAB ka case hai sir ye. So we are bound by these things. We have a certain compulsion to meet. Otherwise, we also know it. And let me clarify one myth which is about the PTA tax. It is basically the PTA who is fighting with the FBR to reduce the tax, not only on the handset but on the usage also, on the this tax and this tax and that tax. We also aware of these things, and in the giving of the handsets also, there is a majority of officials in PTA who support giving the handset on installments. So the Jazz has presented this idea, I think 3-4 years back, and we are supportive of this. But there are certain compulsion, as I said, because the past have seen Dr. Ismail Shah and other people on the technology neutrality, and these are very useful things. But after 3 years, those incentive and other things, efforts of one person, these turn into the negative side. And third is the citizen of Pakistan. So if we really look after the interest of citizen of Pakistan, then CMOs would run away from Pakistan, because they would need as cheap packages as possible, everything on the installment, and then they would run away without paying the installment, and they would like nobody should come after them and catch them. So Jazz, it's not that we are not allowing Jazz to give handset on installment. It is basically we are not supporting their idea that they want PTA's intervention if somebody is not repaying the installment. They want that we should block those handset with the help of DERB, and we should support them in catching those people, registering FIR, then going to the FIA and police and everything, something like this. So it is basically this element we are against of, because we think we are protector of all the three elements in this, and we should not be, running after the people or because of their commercial interest. So it should be, if you see Europe and other places also, the regulator has nothing to do with all these schemes. This is between the commercial entities and the people and their users. But unfortunately, in Pakistan, the laws and other things are not that strong, and they need to protect their commercial aspect. So that's why it is like this. So now coming over to the broader, view of this, we need to see where the world is moving. So, and where Pakistan is at the moment. Pakistan is not even the halfway as compared to the Europe and North America and other developed countries. And if we see where the potential lies in only one industry, and that is ICT. If we see our freelancers, we are among the top 3 countries in the world getting revenue with the help of freelancers and the population of freelancers. And the kind of revenue, foreign exchange we are getting because of the software and other things. So there's the potential. We can turn this, and there's no doubt we can turn this into the leading industry of Pakistan, provided there's an infrastructure to make it materialize. Unfortunately, the freelancer, they use mobile broadband for connectivity and everything, but the condition of internet in country is not very conducive. And similarly, the software houses and the call center, there are latency issues, there are connectivity issues, there are so many other. We all know it because we all are user of this. We are trying. There's a committee in PTA, and these 2 friends of mine are the members of those, co-opted members of those. We are trying to improve the internet resilience in the country. And for that, we are trying to export 5G into the country. For last 3 years, we're doing it. But because of so many other things, we are unable to do this. then we are trying to bring the internet satellite into the country. It's not PTA, by the way, which is blocking this. These are certain other elements. And we are supportive of this. We are trying to bring it, but not only one. Our objective is that there should not be one party monopolizing this. There should be, the base should be broadened. So at the moment, we have seen there are 5 companies who have shown their interest in getting the license. We want to bring it more, and we want to make it as conducive to all and neutral to any particular organization or company as possible. And we want to set up certain regulations. We are not doing it. Rather, there's other regulator which is doing it, because we have seen the ills of this technology when it comes to other countries, where the rate of the government or the state is no more because of these kind of technologies. So we want to channelize it. It's not that we want to block the river. We want to channelize it for the better usage of the water, which is a very scarce resource at this time. So we are doing this. And then we are working on other aspects also. For example, the fiberization. You must have seen the right of way, regulation or direction. So we are trying to implement it with zero cost. We are trying to improve the backhaul and long haul connectivity to make it as redundant as possible, so that the north and south, they remain connected even if there are situations like 1922 floods. And then we are trying to improve the localization, local content. We are trying to bring the point of presence of all the hyperscalers to the country. We are engaged with them, we are talking to them, and we are talking to the investors, because the hyperscaler require a carrier neutral data center to set up their POPs. And we are engaged with many investors who are ready to invest in setting up the data centers in the country. Unfortunately, the short-term measures of the government are not are the biggest hurdle, like the taxation part, or the lack of other incentive, which is not investment friendly, I would say. Because of those things, the people are profited are not very much inclined to invest. Otherwise, there are people who want to come and invest in the country. So the power issue is there, then the other environmental issues are there, stability issues are there, and security issues are there. For example, we are trying all the cable landing to the country. These are concentrated in one city, that's Karachi. And if something happens to Karachi, we would be cut off from the world. So we want to expand it toward the west. There are options like Somiani or Mara, Jiwani, and Gwadar, and something like this. And on the east side, Keti Bandar is there. We want to have the cable landing station on all these stations. But unfortunately, the security situation is not that good. Now we are trying to have collaboration with Navy and Coast Guard, because they have very protected sites. So we are trying to set up some collaboration of those investors with these organizations, so that they can provide a secure harbor, secure landing site, and then they can build the data centers over there. It is important for the redundancy also. It is important for the connectivity east and west with our neighbors. It is also important for bringing the point of presence of all these hyperscalers into the country. And it is good for the transition, transit traffic we can provide to our other neighbors, landlocked neighbors like Afghanistan and Central Asian countries. So we are trying to do this, and 5G is one of those, coming over to the 5G. So we have tried to accommodate as much requests of the CMOs as possible, and government is also quite accommodating toward this. And even after doing these, keeping all those regulatory and other barriers of NAB and audit. So even if they do not come, forthcomingly and buy the spectrum, I would say they would be missing the opportunity. And they also know the congestion, there's a congestion in their, networks, and there are problems, which this, one of the measures we are taking out of so many can sort out. So I think they should participate as much as possible. Even if 50% of the spectrum out of 600, the 300 is added to 274 already, we have it, we would be quite, rich in terms of the spectrum. But I think we should have the 600 all spectrum is transferred to the CMOs, whether through auction or allocation, whatever the case may be. But I think in that, government need to play a very major role. They need to set the strategy right, that we have to promote it, and for that, the incentive in case of the taxation on the sets, on toward the usage, on the investors and other thing. And then the continuity of the planning should be there, that we have to set a goal, like we have set a goal for 2030 vision in the ICT and something like that. We need to set certain goals that we have to do these things. And irrespective of the political party in the arena or whosoever is on the power, in the power, we need to continue with that for a larger interest of the country. And we, as a regulator, we want to assure that we are there as protector of the three segments of telecom, whether it is citizen of Pakistan, the CMOs, or the government of Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mukarram, for summarizing this discussion as well. With this, let me move quickly towards the Q&A and discussion section. If we have anyone who wants to ask something, I already have 3 to 4 questions lined up on online as well. But I think firstly, coming to Alisa, we can perhaps take 2 questions together, and one in person, and then I'll take one online.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. My name is Ali Jabir, and I'm the media coordinator here at STPI. I'm also a journalist by background. I had a general question to all the panelists, sir. Whenever we see a technology rollout, we never see any pilot or model that could be showcased as a community asset or community-owned initiative. Can this 5G technology rollout be framed in such a manner that this can be not only a community asset, but as a regional asset? A regional asset that is owned by not only one nation, by many nations. But if that asset is hurt, the interests of the entire region is hurt. So that could help you get a sort of synergy, unity, and a little conflict resolution kind of situation through technology rollout. Can this be practiced in this scenario, sir?
Libik, any specific speaker you want to?
It's a general question
Sure,
to all the panelists. Anyone can.
Thank you. Let me also frame the second question, and then I think Parvez Saab, you can kind of start. Tahir Saab, I can just take the one online, and then I'll come to you. And this question is from the colleagues from Pasha and is diverted to Aslam Hayat Saab. So the question reads that Pakistan often treats 5G as a technology deployment challenge, whether globally it is increasingly framed as an industrial productivity policy. So what specific sectors in Pakistan, like you highlighted, manufacturing, logistic, agriculture, services, should justify 5G investments first? And should spectrum policy be linked to sectoral economic outcomes rather than the coverage targets alone? And so this is more focused to your question, but I think over to you, Larissa.
To be honest, I don't exactly understand what you mean by community led pilot project, because in case of 5G, for example, it's a huge investment. It's a huge investment that is required. And that is why only very big players are able to do it. And not only that, it also requires spectrum, which is which belongs to, which is a sovereignty issue of a country. So I don't think how this can be done, but perhaps it can be done in situations where you have a kind of a community of nations together. ASEAN, for example, in countries, or European community, for example, maybe. In our situation, exactly, it's even more difficult, because if you look at our surroundings, we have India, we have Iran, we have Afghanistan, and a little bit of China. So with whom are you going to make a community? So that's a challenge that we have. But I think the amount of investment is so high that a pilot project in this particular case may not be or has not been feasible. I don't think it has been done anywhere in the world.
Thank you. Coming to, I think Samsa wants to respond to the second question.
Just one comment on your question, and then I'll move to the Pasha's one. This was something which was discussed at the SARC level, SATRC forums, a couple of years ago. But that could not materialize because of the friendly relationship we have with our immediate neighbor. And things were stopped, even to the extent that we have a frequency coordination problem with India. And that is one of the main reasons that you are unable to use some of the spectrum. So it's extremely difficult unless the relationship of geopolitical are normalized. Coming back to the Pasha question, I think I've in a way already addressed that in the presentation, because I specifically mentioned that this is something which is of enterprise grade solution, not really a mass application on the retail level. So that is why that either the government or the industry take an ownership so that the services are provided to them and the operators are interested to invest in them. For example, one of the immediate use cases which we are aware is the mining industry. They are very keen. They are already talking to the operators about enabling this 5G at their sites. Similarly, I think if the other industry also comes together, especially in the industrial zones, this is something which is going to be very useful. And this would also give an incentive to the operators to immediately deploy 5G. So fully agree that this is something which at the enterprise level should be considered, and maybe afterwards at the retail level, but not retail level at the first time.
Thank you, Aslam Sabji. That's
So very quickly, Professor, as you know, I'm one person who had the opportunity to see the auction of these licenses earlier, and the appetite was huge. And I can quote that the chairman of the PTA actually asked Mr. Javed Saifullah to leave the hall because that would interfere with the pricing or something. And also Arshad Khan, who was bidding for the wireless. So the appetite was huge. It was out of roof. And 292 million for a single license was a huge sum. 291 million for them. Now the government is on the other side. They are selling out the assets on the privatization. And the appetite, and there is another thing on the appetite, head of Reliance India, we had an opportunity to meet there at PICAC, PECIC, and he gave me his card to me that I should slip it to Javed Saifullah for across the seamless penetration, but he didn't want it to do that. Do you think that at this point, Pakistan has the fiscal base to roll out all these things, or these are just sort of an administrative discussion and all that?
And also, let me, before coming, let me also pose a second question, which is more on the private sector, Ms. Fatma. The question is that it's good to see private sector already working on 5G, but given Pakistan's low ARPU, average rate per user environment, what sustainable business model actually makes 5G viable here? Do operators see future revenues primarily coming from the consumers, enterprises, or digital services ecosystems? So that is diverted to you, but firstly, Parvez Saab, to the person.
Yeah, you talk of appetite. Appetite is still huge, I think. There's a huge appetite. I'm sure the CM have made it abundantly clear that they are all interested in spectrum. You're comparing with spectrum auction of 2004. The spectrum of 2004 did not or have either did not have or had a very low base. There was no base price. So that is the first barrier which forces people to suppress their appetite. So they could start from anywhere. So that is one reason that it appears as if people are not willing to spend on spectrum, which also I'm sure it does not appear so, but anyway, if to some it does. One is that. Then there are the commercial terms and conditions. For example, 2004 had a 10-year payback period. Now we have a 5-year payback period. And 2004 had, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Aslam, was there any interest involved? There was no interest. So you could pay 50% in 10 years without any interest. Now it is SCIBOR plus 4%, which is 14% interest. So you are actually forcing people not to take any installment option. So there is a big difference. Appetite is there. The conditions are not the same. It is not, the conditions and the prices are not so conducive. If we have the similar conditions like 2004 auction, the spectrum will sell like anything.
Sorry, can I just add a few words to it? Really, the problem, as I already mentioned about, is the base price, which actually scared away different operators. And we started with a very good environment in 2004, and 6 operators now come down to 3. Now, the problem is that without any policy decision, we have reduced the number of mobile operators to 3 forever. Because there is no spectrum left in 900. After this, there would not be anything in 1800. And of course, there would not be anything in 850 and then others spectrum. So that means that we have deliberately reduced the level of competition in the telecom sector, and we would not increase the number of operators from 3 to 4 at all. This, to me, is a much bigger problem which nobody is seeing, because the customers or the consumer choice has become very limited now. Ideally, I mean, 4 operators should be there where needs to be a leader, and then there needs to be a challenger, a mass market player, and the 4th one should be a niche player. So we have reduced it to 3, which means that it's very easy for them to sit together. I hope they will not. And that is not good something for the consumers. So we need to probably point out this also, that the government should consider introducing more competition, if not through introducing a new operator, but through MVNO licensing.
Sure. Yes, Fatma.
So I just want to add, so what is a healthy ARPU? I think the past 3-4 years, we've seen the industry, I think at one point, we also called what was a digital emergency, you know, when there was a huge energy crisis, connectivity wasn't really, it was a big crisis for the entire industry. But I think we've come a long way since then, the past couple of years. If you look at the IM also, I think as mentioned by Brigadier Saab, that it does take into account a lot of asks. It's a very progressive, very pragmatic approach which has been taken. Ultimately, I think we keep on coming back to this being a 5G auction versus it just being a spectrum auction. I think this nuance is extremely, extremely important. We need spectrum, and the release of spectrum is absolutely critical. 5G, yes, I think that as we've talked about the regional play, we see how 5G is being adopted in some cases, but what will make a successful 5G adoption, we've covered it at length. The real use case, I think, is enterprise, right? So if I mean, robotic surgeries, you talk about the low latency is what 5G really, really offers, right? Like instantly, like somebody sitting in Islamabad can operate in let's say Peshawar. I think that's the use case. But the baseline or the infrastructure prerequisites for us to administer that is not just making 5G available, right? There's a whole other aspect you talked about. There's the government, CMO, citizen troika, but there's a lot of infrastructure that comes into play apart from what a CMO is also willing to invest. And that has to be led by industry. You know, a large scale manufacturing is also, I mean, these are all, our industries also need a revival. Maybe this is an opportunity for all of them, right? But I think realistic approach to 5G is also realizing that ultimately this is something we say in our circles, that if you are going to use it to stream a movie on Netflix, then, you know, that's a disservice to what the technology offers, because you won't see any drastic sort of shift in that. What this technology offers is Industry 4.0, enterprise level use cases. I mean, that's where the real, and even if you bring a socioeconomic lens to it, it's health, education, but it's real time. It's like, what can zero latency achieve for you? So I think that given all this, it's not it's not a silver bullet that releasing 5G is suddenly going to improve the economic productivity of us. I mean, we know that there's a lot that goes into it. The play is much sort of more rich. So ARPU, yes, at a consumer level, it should raise it. I mean, but ultimately, what kind of digital services are you making available to your people? How is from education we went to edtech, from health we went to health tech. How is that being adopted by the user? And that again comes back to the basic question that, yes, whilst connectivity has shown great sort of improvement, usage is still something where we continue to sort of, see a lag.
Thank you so much. I think just in the interest of time, very last set of questions. I think that we have one over there. Ji, Aisha.
My question is directed to Ms. Fatma. While we see 5G as an enabler of Pakistan's economy, almost 48% of the women in Pakistan do not own a mobile phone, and there is a mobile internet gap of 25%. So, and the women who are accessing internet on borrowed phones, they're doing it half as much as the ones who have a mobile of their own. So this is around 50% of the women who do not have independent, complete access to the internet. So what do you think is the biggest challenge to ensuring that this 5G rollout does not widen the existing digital divide? And also, what are some gender responsive policy measures that we can take to ensure that women are active participants and beneficiaries of this rollout?
So I think on that, this statistic that you quoted, it was actually around, I think, 38, close to 40%. So yeah, yes, but it's been reduced massively because of the efforts being made by the government. If you look at the GSMA report, the gap was, I think, around 38%. Now it's at 24%. Yes, but it used to be much more. 38%. So it's actually been significantly reduced because of policy measures.
Last 3 years, Pakistan is the leading country.
Yes.
In taking the lead.
Yes, I think there are gaps that, like I said, look, technology is not going to solve your cultural issues, right? Like mindsets don't get transformed by a hardware. So we really need to, there are deep cultural issues, and what we see represents our culture, right? So if a same smartphone ownership is going to be in the control, in the name of a man, this is what it is an issue. And this is actually, this phenomena is called gatekeeper. Men are gatekeepers, right? So they prevent access. And I was also reading research. It's called that in Pakistan, there's also what you call a digital parda, right? That women are not allowed to use the internet because of the view, how it is viewed. So these challenges cannot just, I mean, policy is there. I don't think there's any gap from that front, but I think this is where we all really need to collectively come together. And when I talked about research earlier also, it was, you need to tie this access to economic viability, livelihoods, and when you see the men, when they see the potential of how this can transform and uplift communities and their own life, I think we will see a different play. Countries which have done that have seen a benefit in the women. 50% of our country is women. If they are not going to be economically productive, then Pakistan really, I mean, we can sit and endlessly do simulations of economic modeling and reasoning, but we won't see much progress.
Perfect. Sure. Thank you so much. Before coming to the final conclusion,
let me add just one small point to this mobile ownership. Even where men are not the gatekeepers and women are actually have their own mobile phone and their own or they are users of that phone, the phone unfortunately belongs, I mean, it's in the name of either the brother, the husband, or the father. That's because women don't feel comfortable to go to a shop and give their fingerprint to get a SIM in their name. So that's another issue. Sure. So these figures are a little bit have to be taken with a pinch of salt.
Thank you so much, Parveza. Before coming to Dr. Sajid, Dr. Mukram, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would like to say it is, hen and egg issue. So I would quote the example of motorway. When motorway was coming, there were many articles in the newspaper. We have seen that transition. where people said there would be so many accidents and, so something is going to be like this, for this $300 million, we can build so much and so much thing. But that brought a revolution into the country, and good cars and good buses and good transport started coming, and good laws and good awareness started coming. So I think this is a digital highway, 5G and LEO satellite and other things. So when they are going to come, the lady in Muzaffarabad, those people, when they would see it, and beside that, there are packages and, mobile phone on the installment, and the taxes are reduced, and so many other incentive like this. When there is a, motorway, so everybody would try to speed up at 120, and the distances are going to shrink.
Sure, thank you. I think perhaps just after Dr. Sajid. So, Dr. Sajid, thank you so much for joining us, and out to you for the concluding remarks.
Yes. Thank you. Obed has sent me a long list of remarks, but I'll just leave it aside and let me start by thanking all of you. And also sorry from Dr. Soleri that he has been called by the Ministry of Climate Change. So he has to leave, otherwise he was supposed to be here with you. So I think first thanks go to always to Brigadier Yassin Saab, who has really continued this debate. I mean, he has been always one step ahead in generating this debate on telecom sector in Pakistan. And I think this is on his credit that he brings all us together on this very important. Thank you, Brigadier Saab. And I think I have always seen PTA very forward-coming. Whenever we had this discussion, we had a very senior level representation and that really shows the commitment of the PTA to take this discussion forward. So thanks to Dr. Muhammad Mukarram Khan Saab. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. Similarly, I think it was the private sector and the service providers. I think this is one of the key area that we always feel jealous with Ubaid and Brigadier Saab, that they always bring the top relevant people on the table. So this is good to see. So my thanks to Aslam Hayat Saab, Senior Policy Fellow, Lead in Asia, Mr. Pervez Iftikhar Saab, International ICT Consultant, Fatma Akhtar Saiba, Head of ESG, Jazz Pakistan, and Hanan Saab. Thanks to you as well. And thanks to Ubaid and his team for assisting Brigadier Saab to continue this discussion. I think if I could draw, not in the for the sake of conclusion, I'm really new to this subject. I always continue to learn. And for today's session, I was just told about 11 that I have to give a vote of thanks. So you can imagine. But I think if I could just see a couple of points coming out. The one is that we need to build a business case for 5G. That to me is the key point. That's more than coverage. It is the industry enterprise that has to step up. And sir, you were asking the government for a very clear strategy and the policy. I think that is a big ask from the government in Pakistan always. We really struggle on that. And I think the supporting infrastructure that also we need in terms of to maximize our get the gains of 5G. More than just providing the spectrum, it is the supporting infrastructure which will be benefiting from that spectrum. And this is, I think, where the role of private sector comes too much heavy because given the government's own limitations, fiscal and others. So I think if we really somewhere we see moving this word, it will be the private sector who will be leading these infrastructure investments in health and education, which are aligned to the 5G. And this is where I think, but I'll just close with the last comment coming from Mukarram Saab. Egg and hen, I mean, this is really that, and that is where we seek your guidance. Where should we start from? Should we first move gradually towards 5G and then this industry will catch up? I think we have seen that the pre-investments are really hard to come by in a country like Pakistan. So we may have to something offer so that the post-event, the post 5G investments we may think will be coming in. So I'll be really closing with a big thanks to all of you once again on this side of table, on this and on this side of table. Thank you, but I'm sorry if I missed
No
your
worries.
any of major remarks.
No,
Back to
thank you so much, Dr. Sajid, for your conclusion and vote of thanks. And again, thanks to the efforts of Brigadier Saab, let me just say Brigadier Saab wants to give any final interventions or remarks.
एक बड़े अच्छे स्पीकर, उनको बुलाया गया स्टेज के ऊपर, तो वो तैयार नहीं थे, तो उसने कहा कि भाई लेडीज एंड जेंटलमैन, I had lot to say, but I think the atmosphere is not appropriate, and I have nothing to say. I thank you very much and goodbye. तो ये है कि I think we have discussed a great deal. I am sure that what we have discussed, there was a lot of meat in it, and what we will try to do, as I said earlier, that we will try to frame implementable policy recommendation, which we will share with the government. I hope they will accept it because they have already too many policies. और इसमें एक और भी मुझे याद आया कि a businessman was sitting before a bureaucrat. He had some problems. He narrated his problems, and the bureaucrat, the secretary, did not agree. So the businessman said, "Sir, I have tried to explain to you so much, but would you tell me that what are the reasons that you are not accepting my request?" And the secretary said, "There are no reasons, it is just our policy." तो ये हिसाब किताब है. तो I once again thank you all. Unfortunately today the quorum is not complete because of the road blocks, and some of our supervisors, they allowed the staff to work from home. So they were very happy to work from home, and that's why the attendance is poor, for which I apologize. But I think the discussion has been very fruitful, and why once again I thank you very much and hope to see you again. And one thing I would like to say, Parvez Iftikhar and Aslam Hayat Saab, they are, the companions of this study group from the last over 2 decades. And this study group, for those who are new, the study group is working. Study group on IT and telecom is working from 1991. First 2 years from the platform of Prime Minister Committee for Research and Analysis, and from 93 from the platform of SDPI. And I think that we have been able to contribute, but you are the best people to know that what we have contributed and what are the results. Every year we present annual report from the last, from 93, that what recommendation we have sent and what have been accepted and what are under consideration and what are not accepted. So once again, thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you. Sir, thank you. Very good. I also have a topic accordingly.